Let's imagine for a moment that you don't want to spend a ton of cash on any of the fancy fitness wearables that we looked at in the last video. That's fair enough and probably quite sensible. In this case, how would you track your fitness? Well, in a ton of different ways, and as we'll see, you can certainly take a more MacGyver approach if that's more your style. Oh, and some of these tracking methods are things that you need to be doing on top of your fitness tracker anyway. In this video, you'll learn how to calculate things like your BMR and your AMR. Want to go old school on your fitness tracking? Well, here are some basic utilities you can use. The first is getting your heart rate. And if you want to monitor your heart rate without a fitness tracking watch, then you have a few options. One is to go to a gym with treadmills and other cardio machines and then just hold on to the handles. Normally, these will use bioimpedance sensors to give you a good reading, and if you keep your training consistent and take note of your heart rate, you'll be able to see your fitness improve over time. Another option is to buy a polar chest strap, which works with a lot of these machines and isn't too expensive. Failing that, well, why not do things the old-fashioned way and just take your pulse with your fingers? To do this, just take your fingers and place them on the inside of your wrist right below your thumb. Count how many beats you can feel in 30 seconds, using a timer, and then double the result to get your BPM. Of course, if you're pushed for time, you can go for 20 seconds and then multiply it by 3, but the more you count yourself, the more accurate the reading's going to be. To measure your resting heart rate, just take your pulse first thing in the morning. This gives you a good indicator of your overall cardio health. A healthier heart has to beat fewer times to circulate the same amount of blood. And it also tells you how much you recovered during the night and whether or not you're ready to train again. Something you should definitely be doing, even if you wear the most advanced strap in the world, is measuring your weight. This is an important metric to know generally, but it's especially useful if you're trying to lose weight. Now, it's important to be careful when measuring weight and using this along with dieting. The problem with measuring weight alone is that it doesn't differentiate between muscle and fat. Weight alone is actually a fairly useless metric then, because what's more important is body composition. So, how do you measure this? Well, one option is to submerge yourself in a special tank that can measure your mass via a clever displacement system, but you probably don't want to afford all that. Instead, why not just measure your waistline? If you're looking to lose weight, then no doubt this is basically what you're trying to affect, and it will offer a much more useful number to base your training on. We said that you needed to know your weight for general purposes too, though, and this is a good example of that. Your BMR and AMR can be used to tell how many calories you burn in any given day. But in order to know this number, you need your weight first. When calculating your calories burned, any fitness tracker is going to first calculate your AMR and BMR based on some data that you put in. Essentially, your BMR is your basal metabolic rate, which is the number of calories you burn when you're just lying there. You need to burn calories just in order to blink, in order to beat your heart, and in order to breathe. The AMR, meanwhile, is the number of calories you burn based on your activity. That doesn't just mean fitness training, but also things like walking, going to work, and so on. To calculate your basal metabolic rate, you use the following equations. For men, your BMR equals 66 plus 6.23 multiplied by your weight in pounds, plus 12.7 multiplied by your height in inches, minus 6.8 multiplied by your age in years. For women, it's slightly different. BMR is 655 plus 4.35 multiplied by your weight in pounds, plus 4.7 multiplied by your height in inches, minus 4.7 multiplied by your age in years. To turn this into your AMR, you multiply that amount by 1.2 if you're sedentary, that means you get little or no exercise, 1.375 if you're lightly active, in other words you exercise 1 to 3 times a week, 1.55 if you're moderately active, in other words your exercise or work is about average, 1.725 if you're very active, in other words you train hard for 6 or 7 days a week, and 1.9 if you're highly active, for example if you're a physical labourer or a professional athlete. With this number, you'll then know how many calories you burn both before and after exercise. This is useful as it lets you know roughly how many calories you consume before you're likely to start gaining weight. Moreover, it's important to keep this in mind when reading how many calories you burned. Why? Because that exercise you're doing is only accounting for a small proportion of the extra calories. Saying you burn 200 calories in an hour is less impressive when you realize that you normally burn at least 83 calories in an hour anyway. Want to measure your strength? There are a number of ways you can do this, but one very simple one is to measure your 1 rep maximum on a variety of lifts, ideally the big 3 compound lifts. Those are the squat, the deadlift, and the bench press. The problem with this plan is that a 1 rep max is quite hard to measure if you don't have a spotter. Something you can do though is to find a weight you can lift 5 times and then use the following equation. 5 RM multiplied by 1.1307 plus 0.6998. This is roughly the same no matter what type of exercise you're performing. Another option is to measure the size of your muscles with tape measures. This is something that professional bodybuilders do a lot, and it's a great way to see if you're gaining size in specific areas. Of course, muscle size does not correlate precisely with muscle strength for a variety of reasons, and once again, there's no way to differentiate between fat here. Still, if size is what you're actually aiming for, as it is for a lot of guys, then this is the most logical thing to measure. That said, another way to measure your aesthetics is quite simply to take a look in the mirror. As long as you're able to be objective, this is the easiest way to see where you still have fat clinging on, which muscles are looking the biggest or the most defined, and where you can improve. Take photos as you train and compare them with how you look in the mirror, and make sure that you think about what it is that you're doing that's causing the positive results or lack thereof. One of the best tools you can possibly use to measure your fitness and to track your performance though, is a good old-fashioned pad of paper and a pen. What can you monitor with this? Well, that all depends on what you're trying to measure. One particularly good example though would be just to write down how you feel each morning on a scale of 1 to 10. From there you can start tracking what you're eating, how you're training, what time you're going to go to bed, and so on, and then look for correlations. You might be able to find, for instance, that you feel bad on the days when you have too much caffeine, or on the days when you eat bread. Maybe you have a gluten intolerance. The point is that by keeping tabs on how you feel and what you're doing, you might be able to identify correlations that offer useful insights and help you improve your health. Tracking your workouts is also a good idea. Keep tabs on precisely what amounts you're lifting and how, where you're running, and so on. And this way, you can then compare that data to your stats and see whether all the hard work is really paying off. There's also a ton of social networks that allow you to do this on a more public forum, and here you can also benefit from some of the social benefits that something like Fitbit offers. For instance, BodySpace is a great site from bodybuilding.com where you can share your progress, your goals, and your pictures and get motivation and feedback from the community. And you can find out more at bodyspace.bodybuilding.com. One more tip is to visit your doctor regularly for health checks. There doesn't need to be anything wrong with you to see your GP. Just ask for a blood test and your blood pressure to be monitored, and you can keep tabs on your general fitness. If you have the money, then paying to see a physio occasionally can help you to avoid getting into bad posture habits and to prevent you picking up bad movement habits. All these things give you more information and an early warning of problems, which can make a massive difference to your health.